In the previous video, we learned how to select objects and how to manipulate them using the Translate, Rotate, and Scale tools. For those of you who are being particularly observant, you may have noticed this window on the right side of our screen. This is called the channel box. In the channel box, you'll notice we have translates, rotates, and scale values for the object we have selected. You'll also notice for each of those translates, rotates, and scales, we have an X, Y, and a Z channel. So what does that mean? To explore this further, we're going to have to go back to some lessons you learned in math when you were younger. Imagine I have a piece of string that I need to cut to a very specific length. Well, we know where the beginning of the string is, so that means we only need to measure in one direction. Let's call this direction X. Now, imagine I don't own a pair of scissors, but you do. And I need to be able to give you the correct information so you'll know the right place to cut. I could tell you X equals 3, and you'll know that you would start at the beginning of the string and measure over 1, 2, 3 units, and you could cut there and deliver the exact right length of string. Now, imagine I wanted you to draw a dot on this piece of paper. It gets a little harder. We already know about the x-axis, side to side, but we still don't know where to put the dot vertically. For that, we're going to need another axis, y. So I could tell you x equals 3, y equals 2, and you would know to measure over 3 and up 2 and draw the dot at where those 2 points intersect. However, nothing in the world around us is really just two-dimensional. Even that piece of paper had a little tiny bit of thickness. So to find a specific spot in a room, we're going to need one more axis. We already have x, side to side, y, up and down. Now we need z, forward and backwards, or depth. So if I were to tell you to find x equals 5, y equals 2, z equals 5, you would know that you would go over 5 units in x, up 2 units in y, and forward 5 units in z, and you'd find this little glass bowl sitting on the table. It can be hard to remember which axis is which when we're tumbling around in 3D space, so 3D programs associate each axis with a color. We say X, Y, Z, RGB. X is red, Y is green, and Z is blue. Red, green, and blue are the 3 color channels that make up most digital images, such as a JPEG. You'll learn more about those as you progress through your digital media classes. Okay, back to Maya. You'll notice that in our channel box, we have Translate, Rotate, and Scale, each with an X, Y, and Z channel for the object we have selected. You'll also notice that our Move tool has a red, a green, and a blue axis. If I move the object in the red axis, we will see that in our channel box, the Translate X is the only value that updates. If I want to be very specific about where I put that object, I can type in a number, such as 5. You'll notice that the object has moved over 5 units on the grid. You'll also notice on the grid that the thickest lines intersect at 0, 0, 0. So if I type in 0, my object goes back to the origin. When moving objects in Maya, 1 unit equals 1 space on the grid. However, when rotating objects, if I were to type in 1, you'll notice that my object barely rotates at all. That's because these values are in degrees. So if I need my object to rotate a quarter of the way around, I would have to rotate it 90 degrees. It can be a little unclear sometimes what each axis represents in rotation. For example, is rotate X rotating toward the x-axis or around the x-axis? If I go back to my Move tool, you'll see that the red axis is serving as an axle for the rotation we just created. So X, when I'm rotating an X, I'm rotating around the Translate X axis. Again, we can zero this number back out to get back to our origin. Scale is the only value in our channel box that is set to 1 instead of 0. If I were to type 0 into our scale values, you would see that it appears our object disappears. It actually doesn't, it just has 0 amount of scale. So if I type in 1, it will scale the object back up. If we want our object to be twice its size, we could type in 2. You'll notice that if I have multiple channels in the channel box highlighted, and I type in a number, that value will go into all of the channels that I have highlighted. It can be very tedious to constantly have to type in numbers into our channel box though. So we can dynamically change these numbers just by clicking in the channel and dragging from side to side. You'll see that this allows us to adjust our object manually. However, this can be a little less than useful in our translates and our scale, because if I click on Translate X and start to slide it, you'll see my object quickly flies off screen. It's way over there. That is because when I click in my channel box, it is only updating a whole number at a time. If I needed to update it a smaller increment, I could hold down Control and it will update it a tenth. Or I can click on the word Translate X, and in my viewport I can middle mouse click and scrub from side to side in order to adjust my object more precisely. This will work for multiple channels at a time as well. If I highlight multiple channels in scale and middle click in my viewport, I could scale the object up in all 3 channels at once. Finally, all the way at the bottom of our channel box, we're going to see visibility. Visibility has a value of on, which is a word. This is a different kind of value in our channel box. If I were to type off, OFF, you'll see our object disappears. You'll notice that our object is still here. It's in our outliner, and if I unhighlight it, it's just gray now. That means that it's invisible. If I want to bring it back, I can select it in my outliner and type in ON for on. 0 and 1 will also work for this. 0 will turn our object off. 1 will turn our object on. Sometimes you want to be able to do this quickly. The shortcut key for turning our object's visibility on and off is Control H to hide and Shift H to unhide.